Why meditate?
That's a nice general one. Okay, so why meditate? So the simplest reason, simplest motivation you should have is that your entire life consists of two things, no matter how you look at it, is your awareness, which can encompass, your vision, your hearing, your interoception, how your body feels, your sense of touch, sense of taste, anything that you can be aware of, including obviously mental objects like your thoughts. And then there's your attention. And your attention is obviously kind of like the point. If your awareness is a big lamp, then or a big searchlight, then your attention is more like a directed flashlight, let's say, or a pen light or a laser, depending on how good you do. So that's what you are as a conscious entity. You have awareness and attention. So considering that your entire life consists of what you're aware of and how you attend to it, meditation is one of the very best, or the very best, ways to first of all acknowledge that this is true, that there is an awareness about life, and that you do have an attention span, and then to investigate it. So a lot of people look at it with they kind of are dismissive, It ends up with people having a whole bunch of statues and possibly crystals and possibly other things. But really, when it comes to an inner science, and you actually, I've read pretty extensively on it, and when you look at what it really is, it is a science of the self. So when people, I'll speak from my experience, when I first heard of it, and I'm sure you could approach it with psychological terminology, but I dealt with a lot of depression in my teens and early 20s. And I first came across a book. It was Alan Watts, and it was like The Way of Zen, I believe. And it was the first time that I had been introduced to the concept that the thoughts and emotions and experiences that you have are impermanent, and they are not what you are. What you are is the greater, and again, it's always metaphorical so people can understand, but you're the sky, and everything, your emotions, they're like clouds or birds or things moving through, but they are not constant, no matter how much they might feel that way. So getting that, what is referred to as metacognition, so you have the first time I realized that if I actually looked into my experience, that there was space for me to observe my thoughts, observe my feelings as they move through, and watch the fact that they were somewhat wave-like. They weren't persistent. Even in the deepest part of my depression, I'd still laugh and still not be thinking bad thoughts or not be thinking negative thoughts. So even the concept was incredibly freeing. And I didn't pursue a meditation practice for a couple of years. But once you sit, and that's very, very important, once you restrain the body, right, because it can be very, very distracting, and you make simple attempts, whether it's like counting your breath up, following your breath up to the count of 10, and you observe the thing that maybe you might have had an idea that you are the one who's thinking, so that when you go to sit down and you're like, I'm going to meditate, and you find it's nearly impossible to pay attention for any length of time, you start to realize that you do not have, you're not the author of your thoughts. You don't control or have any level of mastery over your internal landscape. And it can go incredibly deeply, it can go that essentially the reason that meditation is so valuable, and if you look at like Buddhist philosophy, is essentially, some people translate it as, he said, life is suffering, but it's the word dukkha, which is used for translated as suffering, has many meanings, but essentially it's like more like unsatisfactory, or the most important thing to realize is that there's no permanence that we often ascribe to things. So that's the source of our suffering. So once you meditate and you begin to realize, you get this powerful tool of awareness, it can start to, the mindfulness, hopefully what you'd hope to do is have that mindfulness spread into your rest of your normal life. So that when you begin to, you have this deep awareness of, oh, this is how irritation starts with me. Just like doing this podcast, when I don't feel necessarily that I'm at my best, sitting to meditate on a regular basis at a regular time, you'll encounter times where you don't want to do it. You don't feel like doing it. And that's, even that is important, because when you sit down in that state of distraction, then you can investigate it. What is this? What is the feeling tone around it? Why am I not doing this? Or how is this coming to be? So meditation in my life, and I still have great challenges at times with states of mind, but even if you can't access deeply the way that investigation can observe the flux, the way that things are always changing, the impermanent nature of your existence, it can give you that tiny metacognitive space where you can at least speak to yourself about the fact that this isn't going to be forever, whatever it might be. And some people have challenges with the fact that applies to the positive elements too. But once again, the qualities that you want to have, that you might desire as a human being, that are associated with mindfulness, if they're only present in you under the best of conditions, under the ideal circumstances, then they're probably not very enduring. So meditation and mindfulness is almost like a gymnasium, or like a workout space in which you can kind of observe what's going on, and that attention can then be employed in specific practices that allow you to generate. So there's a lot of things where they have what they call remedies. If you're angry, you apply patience. There's essentially opposite states of mind. So I'm incredibly far from perfect, but I do know that the tendencies I have to be a kind person, I think, to be gentle, to try to seek peace and understanding and tolerance, they are largely a result of this practice. Because just like the physical things, the things outside of yourself, or even your own body, if you want your own body to be healthy, you can't just hope it happens. You have to have an active engagement with doing some sort of fitness. And from a mental state, from an emotional state, psychological state, or in those arenas, there is the capacity to develop there is the ability to develop greater capacities for those things with practice. It can be incredibly frustrating at times, but I think regardless of the details, Sam Harris, who I uses app for meditation at times, he even claims, or even has stated, that even were there to be some not beneficial, like even if it weren't necessarily good for you, like if there was some negative outcome or negative things attached to it, he would say it's still valuable to do. Because I don't know about other organisms, but as human beings, and sometimes it can sound like, stoner philosophy, but if you think about it, everything you perceive is generated by your mind. It's a very strange kind of like very strange relationship, but the awareness of your body is entirely a mental thing, right? Yes, there's a body to provide feedback, but everything in your experience is mind. There's nothing that isn't. A lot of people, and this can sound like woo-woo, but I look around the room. This is, in any, to my senses, this is how it is. But however, if I take off my glasses and my eyesight is not good, the room did not become blurry. This is purely because what my mind is processing as my visual acuity is not as good without these. The world that we live in is generated by physical and mental processes. I'm of the personal belief that my world is a better place to live in because of meditation, because the way that I engage with the world, a lot of the philosophical, psychological, emotional, all of those qualities that I have as a human being, a lot of them are a direct result of meditation. So I guess like the basic to sum it up in being concise is that as a human being, you have access to your awareness and you have capacity to attend or have attention within that awareness, and meditation is one of the best systems in which to gain a level of deeper awareness, to increase your awareness and sharpen your attention. And that means your world's a better place.